The content you're about to enjoy comes from the archives of The Best You. We're devoted to the very best in personal development. With a magazine and resources dedicated to inspiring and changing people's lives. At The Best You, we work with the world's leading writers and trainers on the evolution of the self, and people whose journeys have been affected by their work and words. For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co. Okay, here we are. It's Bernardo Moya, founder of The Best You, author of The Question, and I'm excited, delighted, and honored to be interviewing here today my friend Daniel Bissonnette. So let me do over. Hey, how are you, Daniel? All good?
I'm good. I'm doing great.
Thank you. So Daniel is a 15-year-old prodigy. At the age of 12, he was ranked in the world's top 100 most influential vegans. At 13, won the Shining World Leadership Award for compassion, became the most in-demand youth keynote in the wellness industry, wrote his first best-selling book, Daniel's Breakfast Burst, and the recent anticipated Genius Mode, The Biology of Greatness. His message is on how you can rewrite the genetic code to genius and has been translated into 40 languages, inspiring adults and youth alike. I've had the pleasure of meeting Daniel a few years ago when he spoke at our first expo. I believe it was in London and then also in California. So he's been with us for quite a few times and it's been just great to see him evolve and grow into this young man who he is now, who's he's a legend already at his age. How are you, Daniel?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the awesome introduction.
No.
Yeah. So actually, the first Best You Expo I went to was the one in LA. And ever since then, I've just been going to every single one. And I was really excited for this one. But, the coronavirus happened. And so I'm excited for, when it comes up. But
yeah, well, listen, it's been great to see you evolve and, grow physically, but also, basically in so many different ways with your expertise and how you've literally inspired so many people around the world. So, Daniel, there's many things I want to talk to you about. And one of the reasons I wanted to invite you was you were one of my guests in one of the Facebook Lives we were doing recently. And obviously, this is for my podcast, The Inspiring People. And, I've had many great people. I've had so many great people that I've interviewed over the years. And I think, obviously, it is about inspiring people and helping people. And I think, you've got a lot of expertise already at your young age. And I know you have a lot of information. And some people will say, well, hold on a minute, what does this kid know? Okay, so let's try and cater here for different types of people that may have, different expertise and understanding because you have a lot of understanding. And so first of all, tell me about how you got into what you do now, because I always like to kind of explain to my guests, who is the man, who's the woman that I'm interviewing, and how did you get to what you're doing now? Okay, because there must have been a before all this, and what put you on that journey?
Yes, well, it started when I was in elementary school. See, my parents always raised me on a healthy diet. But that was back then. And, I was vegan back then. And back then, vegan wasn't really cool. So I was made fun of because of my diet and because I was the only one in my whole school who didn't eat junk food. It was really shocking to kids. So I basically, from the first day of preschool until grade 3, I was bullied because I ate different. So that's 6 years of my school life. And it hurt me deep down inside. I just learned that my opinions didn't really matter. Nobody really cared. And it would only get me into more trouble. But then in grade 3, my teacher asked me to give a presentation about my diet in front of the class. And, I really didn't want to do it. I wanted to say no. But then it hit me. What if I helped just one kid eat healthier? It would be worth it. So I did the presentation. And to my surprise, the whole class listened. Kids started trashing their junk. They were switching to organic food. I got such great positive feedback. And that talk, people still come up to me today and tell me about that talk. That talk was so impactful that there are still kids in my school right now who are in high school. Remember, this was in elementary school. They still remember that talk. So it was really powerful. But what was even more powerful is I found my voice. I realized that I could make a difference and that my opinions did matter. And it was really that aha moment. And then I got invited to speak at a global rally, and it went viral. My talk became the most viewed video on YouTube for that event, which was held in 450 different cities around the globe with over 2 million attendees. After that, I'm like, okay, I'm onto something. So that kind of got me started with my speaking journey. And I began giving presentations, and it was great. But after my talk, people really didn't know what to do. So I decided to write my book, The Daniel's Breakfast Burst. It was really, really cool because it was designed to have the right foods combined correctly at the right time. So I have this book that's got carefully designed breakfast recipes, and breakfast is the most important meal of the day because that's when you start your morning and your body is primed to absorb the most nutrients out of your food because you've been fasting now for 8 hours or however long you sleep. So for those of you who are not listening on the podcast and who are seeing the visual on YouTube or Facebook, this is the book. And yeah, it was awesome. But I continued speaking, and it was great. I was a national speaker in Canada, and then in grade 6, my teacher calls my mom for a meeting, and he says, "We've tested Daniel, and he's not a gifted child. In fact, he's not gifted in anything. Some children are not entirely gifted, but they're gifted in certain areas. With Daniel, nothing shows up. Nothing. In fact, his writing is so horrendous, I'm thinking of giving him the writing disability test." Now, even though by that time I was already a national speaker and author, it still really hurt me. I felt crushed. But then, as I was feeling sorry for myself, sitting in the corner of the room, my mom walks up to me. She places her hand on my shoulder and she says, "Son, you were given this experience as a gift. So snap out of it, you little wimp." I was shocked. And it really got me awake. And I realized, what if my teacher was wrong? You know, what if genius isn't something you have to be born with? What if it's something you could become? So I started looking into it. And I found out that Albert Einstein, Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, Isaac Newton, and much more, they were all conscious about their diet. So maybe my teacher is wrong, because this is no coincidence.
Let me ask you a few questions here, Daniel. So regarding, I suppose, obviously, kind of like, you know, so it's a great story so far, and you know, kind of, I suppose that aha moment when you know, I suppose even kids were probably picking on you because, you know, you were eating weird, not them, and you know, when you spoke and all of a sudden, you got your friends and colleagues' attention. And they started, well, kind of, I suppose, being a little bit more aware of what they ate. How did it impact from then on? Because I want to know, did it have an impact from then on? I mean, are kids in your school, were they more aware? Did they continue taking care of what they ate?
Some did. It definitely open their eyes a little bit, and now the people are more aware generally about their health, especially now with the coronavirus. So it did have an effect. It wasn't that big of an effect, because kids are not going to stop eating candy because some kid talked, but it had a big effect in my class at the time, like huge effect. People were coming up to me and asking if their food was good. They would give me their bag of candy or whatever just to get me to read the ingredients. They were looking for, the organic label. They were looking for the non-GMO label. Yeah. And my talk at the time was on GMOs. So that's really what people were talking to me about. And they were asking me to read the labels and see if it's okay. And kids were throwing out their candy in the garbage after my talk. And
listen, as you said, I mean, ideally you were trying to just see if you could help one, but you obviously helped and inspired quite a few more. Now, I'll talk about your teachers and obviously kind of their pre-established ideas of what genius is and who isn't genius and who, like, that
teacher that told me that was a very strict teacher. Nobody in the school really liked him.
Yeah, but I mean, kind of like at the end of the day, words are so important, and people don't understand. But teachers, if anyone, in any profession should definitely understand the importance of words and hypnotic command that can have for life. Because you can say that to someone, hey, you're not talented, and it can have an impact on them for life.
Actually, speaking of which, that's really something they've discovered. When they created the gifted test, it was like a while back, when they created the gifted test, they discovered that they can't tell the kids the results unless they passed it. Because if they tell the kids that they weren't gifted, it can have lifelong devastating consequences.
Absolutely.
It destroys their self-esteem. So that was a strict rule. And my teacher went against that rule. I discovered this later on in life. I was telling this to one of my principal in high school. She's like, what? He told you that? You're never supposed to tell that to a kid. So I started looking into it. I discovered that, yes, that was incorrect. He never should have done that. But because he did, it got me on this journey. So I'm actually very thankful that he did tell me.
Absolutely. Well, listen, it's a drive for many people that obviously, like yourself, who you've gone and proven him wrong. And I'd like to see how many books he's written. But anyway, let me ask you. So with what you do now, and I want to we'll get a little more specific. Do you feel that the youth in general, and this is a massive generalization because I get it, I suppose it depends on your circumstances, your upbringing, the how your family eats, what you're surrounded by. But do you feel that the younger generations are starting to understand the importance of eating well, eating the right things?
Well, it definitely starts with the parents. For example, my parents never had any junk food or candy in sight. In fact, I would use it as art supplies when I was little. So it's kind of funny. I'd make art out of it. So it was kind of like a fun activity for me, but I never thought of eating it. So when I went to school, I'm like, because I thought everyone ate like me, right? I thought everyone ate my diet. And then it was quite shocking when I went to preschool. I discovered that, whoa, things are really different here. But that was back then. There are a lot more aware parents now about health and stuff. And it really starts with the parents, because the kid is only going to eat what the parents give him. And so if you start raising them on junk food and candy and McDonald's, they're going to keep eating that. So it's really important to start young, but it's also important to educate. For example, my parents were just very smart. They never said I couldn't eat anything. They said, go ahead, eat the candy. But they educated me. And when you educate, you give, it gave me the choice. I never felt forced because I never was. I could eat candy whenever I wanted. In fact, one time I did try a marshmallow when I was 5 years old, and that was the only marshmallow I've ever had in my life because I stuck behind my parents' back, but whatever, they knew. They figured it out. And you know what? It's fine because they empowered me and they gave me the information and they let me do whatever I really wanted. But because they informed me so much, I knew what was the right decision. And also not growing up with that food also helped. So it's really important to start young. If not, it's fine. The generation can be educated. But, I just feel like it's really important to start young. It's very important.
And how about parents? I think kind of like, we'll talk a little bit more further down the interview regarding, COVID and also about, having a good, strong immune system. But do you think parents are more aware? And again, I suppose this depends on the countries, depends on the education, depends on your budget, because, unfortunately, quite rightly, junk food is cheap, and, a lot of junk food, you can go and buy, 700 wings for like $2, so kind of like, there's just silly offers there, for people that, if you haven't got the money, well, it's just a good thing. Do you think it is changing? Are people more aware now of how important it is to eat the right things and have the right nutrients?
People are definitely waking up, and it's very, very important. People like Jason Vale and, a lot of these health experts are really bringing the message out there. And with the internet, it makes it so much better. So I think the message is definitely getting out there, and now a lot faster than it would have without the internet. So that's a really, really key asset that has, led to a lot of people realizing the importance of the food they eat. And one of the things that I was going to lead to in my story, which I guess I should continue that now because it kind of leads into this. So what happened was I started doing research on if there was a way to turn on genius. And what happens is I found nothing after 6 months. And then I was running to school one day and I got stung in the neck by a bee. And that got me thinking, What makes a queen bee a queen bee? And what makes a worker a worker? I discovered that everything we knew about the bees was completely backwards. Every single larva in a beehive is a queen bee. Every single larva is a queen bee. But they're fed food that turns off the queen gene because it contains p-cumaric acid, which is a plant flavonoid. By the way, the plant flavonoid is great for us. So that means we can enjoy honey and bee pollen, and it's great for us. But because the bees are so small, it's not good. Whereas it creates hormesis in us, which basically is kind of like a workout. When you have a workout, it's not actually good for you, but the way your body reacts to it is fantastic. So indirectly, a workout is good for you. But tearing your muscles doesn't have a benefit. When your body rebuilds it stronger, that's the benefit. So that's hormesis. And it's got the same effect with a plant flavonoid. It makes you stronger. That's why, when you get sick, it's not necessarily the best thing for you, but your immune system gets stronger after that. You get an immune system boost because it creates hormesis. That's the same idea. That's the importance of hormesis. So that's the plant flavonoid. But because they're so small, it turns off their queen gene. And what I discovered is that this is the same for humans. This science is called epigenetics, and it proves to us that genius is a built-in mechanism encoded in our DNA, and there is an exact science to unlocking it. And what I also discovered is that what you don't eat is way more important than what you do. Because you can do all the right things, but if you're also eating junk food, it's not going to have any benefit. It's like taking one step forward and two steps back. So it's very important to avoid the genius deactivators or the foods that weaken your immune system. It's more important to do that than to focus on the right foods to eat. So that's why a lot of companies sell you the idea that you can just add one more product, their product, to your diet, and you're going to miraculously solve all your weight loss problems or, whatever you want. You're going to have a boosted immune system. It doesn't work like that. You can't just add one food in and automatically you're going to change everything unless you got a really clean diet. So that's why we should definitely get more into that. That's really an essential part.
It is said that we live in a world our questions create. And it's true. Those that have succeeded in life, those that stand out, those that have made a difference, those that are inventing, those that are exploring, pushing the boundaries of reality are based on those that have asked themselves empowering questions. In my new book, The Question, Find Your True Purpose, I help you find your true purpose, find your legacy. For more information, go to www.thequestion.co. If you're interested in working with me, contributing, speaking at any of our many events, partnering, or licensing The Best You, for more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.
Yeah, so I want to start with, now obviously we know junk food is bad, but I want to start with really why, because people don't know exactly why. Companies cut corners to save money, but they also want their food to be addictive and irresistible. This is why it's so successful. What happens is they combine these three essential ingredients: salt, sugar, and fat. And these three ingredients are based off of our ancient times. In the wild, before we invented agriculture and all this goodness, you never knew when your next meal would be. You needed energy and you needed minerals. Salt is minerals, which is why we crave it, why it tastes so good. Not table salt. Table salt is stripped of its minerals, but it still has that flavor, right? So there's that. Salt is really essential. And it also hides artificial flavors. It hides those nasty flavors. So it's really a key part of junk food. Then they have sugar. Now, sugar is addictive and it activates the same receptors as cocaine in the brain. Plus, it's not that expensive. And then they use fat. Now, they don't use quality fats. They use these garbage fats. And what the garbage fats do is they create this mouth feel. And this is specifically in ice creams and stuff like that, where you feel like when it melts in your mouth, it tricks your brain into thinking the calories have vanished so you can eat more. And so when they have this exact science down, their food is irresistible. But because they're cutting corners and using all these synthetic sweeteners and all that stuff to really save a few pennies, what happens is you get food that creates inflammation in the brain. And they've done studies that in just 5 days, it creates inflammation in the brain and reduces your memory. So that's something you should stay away from. Another key point, which is very important today, is mercury. And this is going to link back to something I'm going to talk about later. But mercury is really, it's quite interesting. You find mercury in fish nowadays. It's in fish. And fish is a very important part of some cultures' diets. For example, in Okinawa, Japan, they eat a lot of seafood and fish. And Okinawa, Japan, there's a little, city called Ujimi. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. But basically, this is one of the blue zones, where the blue zone is the people live the longest there. This city has the most 100-year-olds per capita. So it's very, very, why are the people so long-lived? Let's study that. We look into it, and they eat a lot of seafood, and they grow their own food. And their food is grown on volcanic soil. So it's got soil, and it's got these typhoons. All the typhoons do is bring a bunch of minerals and seawater and salt and seaweed onto the shore, mineralizing the soil. This is really important in farming because plants pull out minerals, and a lot of them. So what you need to do is you got to constantly be putting minerals back in the soil. Otherwise, your plants become mineral deficient, and we need minerals. So if we eat the plants, we become mineral deficient because plants can't produce minerals. They produce vitamins. So it's really important, but a lot of farmers don't do that because it's too expensive. So that's why a lot of people are mineral deficient, and minerals are so important. They make up 60 of the 91 essential nutrients. Essential meaning we need them to survive, but our body can't produce them. Another one is iodine. Iodine is very essential. So essential, in fact, that if the baby doesn't get enough iodine, when it's born, it's going to have a lower IQ. Iodine is actually very essential for the brain because it's conductive, and our brain works electrically with brain waves. So iodine is so important. It's also really important for the thyroid gland and a bunch of other functions in the body, and women actually need it more than men. But here's the problem. Iodine is found in seafood. And because of the pollution in the ocean right now and in the lakes, you do not want to get fish because they're super high in mercury and heavy metals. Now, mercury, we know, is a toxin. And if you were to get enough iodine from seafood, you would die of mercury poisoning, probably. But there is a solution. There are great supplements out there. You can also consume kelp, which isn't the tastiest, but it's got good iodine. Another thing is when it comes to fish, because some people, they're not going to stay away from fish. Salmon, you could eat salmon. The best fish, though, if you want fish, is sardines. Because they're really small, they're really low in mercury. The fish that live the longest in the ocean have the most heavy metals. So the smaller fish are generally better. So if you're going to eat fish, I would pick sardines over the other fish because they have a lower amount of mercury and heavy metals. But you're not going to get your dose of iodine from that, because you need to eat a lot, which is why it's very, very important to consume iodine. And you should definitely, I highly recommend anyone listening to this, do more research into iodine. It's crazy what you're going to find. But here's the problem with iodine in our bodies. In our environment, we're basically loaded and we're surrounded with what are called iodine antagonists. These group of iodine antagonists look similar to iodine in the body. So when the body doesn't have iodine, it's going to go for that. And when it tries to use it, it blocks the glands and it blocks the receptors. Basically, you can't use the iodine. So what happens is your body's using these other substances instead of the good iodine, and it doesn't have the same effect. In fact, it has a negative effect. And this causes a lot of problems. In fact, deficiency in iodine leads to breast cancer. That's what they found. So that's one of the causes. You want to make sure you have enough iodine. It's very important stuff. So let me get into what these antagonists is, these iodine antagonists are. There's bromine, there is chlorine, and there's fluoride. There's a few more, but these are the main ones that we find in our environment. Where's bromine found? It's found in breads. They used to put iodine in bread, and people got plenty of iodine. But then something happened. Some crazy scientists decided to substitute it with bromine, which is a neurotoxin. You don't want bromine. It's toxic. And it looks like iodine in the body. close enough to iodine for the body to use it as iodine and try to use it. And then there's fluoride. Fluoride is found in water. It's found in toothpaste, a certain toothpaste. There are some toothpastes that don't have fluoride, but I don't know why. There was this myth going around that fluoride is good for your teeth. And let's say it is. If you're putting that stuff in your mouth, inevitably it's going to go into your body. So you don't want fluoride in your body. Luckily, you can detoxify from this. When your body has iodine, it detoxifies from these heavy metals. What the iodine also does is it actually detaches the heavy metals from your tissue so that your body can eliminate it. So the iodine is important, and that's something we should start supplementing with. Go ahead.
No. Listen, it's just there we go. There's Daniel on a masterclass of oh, and I didn't want to interrupt you because obviously everything you're saying is extremely interesting and obviously important. So the basics of I want to ask you about fasting, and I want to ask you also about right now, obviously very relevant to talk about the immune system and how to build a good, strong immune system. But based on kind of what you understand and you learn a lot, I've just literally started appreciating and understanding more, the basic things we have to have. I've known a long time, around vitamin C, and I've known obviously around magnesium and zinc and the importance of that. So what would you say, having a proper diet, i.e. you're not eating a lot of fat, you might not even eat meat, or if you eat it, you might eat white meat, so you eat maybe just once a week. I don't know, but obviously you eat well, you don't need a lot of fried. What are the basic essential supplements that people should have on a daily basis, Daniel?
Awesome. Okay, let's get into it. First, we got to understand the immune system, and the immune system is misunderstood. A lot of people think it's white blood cells, but 70% of your immune system is your gut microbiome. It's the bacteria in your gut, and you got more bacteria in your body than you have cells. So people go, whoa, that's crazy, right? It's probably germs. What they actually found was that, and this kind of links back to genius because your gut and your brain are connected, and that gut feeling is actually something that exists. Your gut actually tells your brain stuff. They've done studies on this with rats and stuff, but basically you need that good gut bacteria. And when you take antibiotics, it's like dropping a nuclear bomb inside there. It kills everything, the good and the bad bacteria. But here's the thing. The good and the bad bacteria are always battling in your gut. It's kind of like a movie. They're battling. And so you can think of this strategically. If your gut microbiome are battling each other, you need to have more good gut microbiome. You've got to have more good bacteria in your gut to win. What happens is, this is very interesting. Every disease starts with the weakness in the gut. This is profound. And it makes total sense because your immune system is there. If there's a weakness there, then the virus or the disease, it can take advantage of that and enter and wreak havoc. So that's why you have to have a strong gut microbiome. And antibiotics, what they do is they're antibacterial. So when you get rid of the good and the bad bacteria, you have no defense. So any bacteria that just comes around, bad or good, is going to, if you don't have a defense, and if bad bacteria comes, never mind a weak bacteria. What about like a strong bacteria? What about a virus? Let's say maybe a COVID-19 comes around and you have no defense against it because you took an antibiotic. Luckily, if you have to take antibiotics, there are great ways you can solve this problem. You can take probiotic supplements because 70% of your gut is down there and there's an infinite battle going on in your gut between good and bad bacteria. You can give the good guys a helping hand. Think about it strategically. You got to give them more guys because if you want to win, you got to outnumber the bad guys. Same thing with your gut. So you can consume good probiotics. Now, great probiotic foods, you can have kefir. Yogurt is, what's interesting is that milk kefir actually has like 50 something strains of bacteria, whereas yogurt only has 2 strains of bacteria. So it's very weak compared to kefir. But this is specifically the dairy kefir. So if you're like, you can't really have a vegan option. And I'm actually switching over to vegetarian now because there are just some very, very essential nutrients in egg yolks for your brain that you can't find in plants in high enough amounts. So I'm actually going to be switching over to, and I don't recommend dairy, but I would recommend kefir because of how profound it is. It's got so many different strains of bacteria. Sauerkraut is also a great one. It's delicious too. And what else is another good one? Kombucha. Kombucha has been shown to, obviously it's delicious, but most kombuchas don't have the right fermentation time, which means they have too much sugar in them. Plus, kombucha has small amounts of alcohol in it. And some, there are some toxic bacteria if you have specific, culturing processes, and it just gets really complicated. You got to find a really good brand, and it's really hard to do. And I just not going to take that risk. So I personally don't drink kombucha. You can if you want to, but I would limit it to once a week. And you want to be consuming one of these probiotic foods a day. So like you can have once a day, you can have a little probiotic drink, or you can have a little bit of yogurt, whatever you want. But I would recommend the kefir over the yogurt if you're going to have that. So that's my take on it. There are also other great probiotic foods, obviously. Like I mentioned earlier, sauerkraut's a great one. But you also need prebiotics. So prebiotics are great because they're food for the bacteria. The bacteria can multiply in your stomach, the good bacteria, if you give it good food. So it's so important to do that because it's like sending out soldiers with no food. They're gonna starve. You're not gonna win the battle. But if you send them out with food, they'll have a fighting chance, especially if it's good quality food. So there are two types of food for your gut bacteria. They're both fibers. There's fructooligosaccharides, which is FOS, which is a fiber, and then there's inulin, which is another fiber. So you basically want to get the quality fiber into your diet. So there are two types of fibers. There's soluble and insoluble fiber. And that kind of relates to your stool, which is the next thing I want to talk about. People kind of, when they think of the immune system, they probably don't think of their poop. And it's kind of a topic that some people might not feel comfortable talking about. But it's actually very, very important because your poop is the food that goes through your gut. So you can tell a lot about your gut health from your poop. And it's free biofeedback every single day. Some people don't feel comfortable about talking about it, but when it comes to your health, it's very important to have that good assessment because you know if you're having the good amount of fiber or not. You want a consistency like ice cream. It sounds very funny, I know. But if you have your stool, the consistency of ice cream, you can Google the Bristol stool chart and you'll find it's actually number 4 on the Bristol stool chart. That's the kind of consistency you want, like creamy, like ice cream, and it sticks together. So weird to talk about it. But anyways, it's very important because you do not want it too hard and you don't want it too soft. And what you need to do is if it's too hard, you can take insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber kind of acts like a brush. That's stuff in celery and vegetables. It's really great. Soluble fiber will harden your stool because soluble means your body can break it down. Insoluble, your body can't. So soluble is really, really great because it hardens your stool. So if you have a loose stool, you can take a banana and that's got soluble fiber. You can also take laxatives. Magnesium citrate is a laxative. So if your stool is a little too hard, you can take magnesium citrate. And, that's a magnesium supplement that's available at almost every single health food store. Natural Calm is one of the brands. And you can take that and it's going to give you a quite an interesting effect. But you don't want to take too much of it to the point where you have a liquid stool. So it's weird to talk about it, but it's actually, you can tell a lot about your health from your stool.
To find out about my latest projects, get a free coaching lesson or download my book, go to www.bernardo-moya.com.
Sorry, I muted myself. I was just about to say that at the end of the day, people may laugh about it, but the fact is it's kind of like, eating is like a car, isn't it? So kind of like if we look at the analogy of us being a car, well, if you put fuel that has all sorts of, bad things that aren't fuel, including, water or whatever it may be, well, it's going to have effect. There's different qualities of fuel or petrol. If you decide to put something completely wrong, i.e. sugar, alcohol or whatever, well, it's not going to have a great effect on the engine. And then if the engine is smoking badly, in this case, we were talking about the poop, well, kind of, I suppose that's the case too. If you're smoking a lot, well, your mechanic will say, hey, you haven't got any oil in the engine. So the fact is we normally tend to look more and take more care of our car many times than people take care of their bodies. And at the end of the day, understanding our body is our obligation and commitment. I keep emphasizing the idea around, that nowadays, if anything, it's just simply pointing out how important it is to be healthy and to have a really good, strong immune system.
Definitely.
Because those that obviously are getting, infected or affected are mainly people that don't obviously have a strong immune system. And it might be because of their age, or it might be because they're just simply not strong physically, and not eating the right things, and their body's not able to fight it. Daniel, with what's going on now, what's your? I'm talking about with the coronavirus and everything else. What are the best things that people could do, should do right now, if anything?
Okay, so I want to get into some supplements that people can take, and I also want to get into kind of what's going on. We really see that a lot of people are losing their jobs, and this is evident in Costco because you see all the organic food is still there, but a lot of people are preparing just in case the food supply might run out. We don't know, but I would look into that. And another thing is supplementation. Everyone needs a wake-up call. Really? That's the most important part. A wake-up call to tell people they need to take control of their health. People focus a lot on how do I make money. Our society is driven by money. So, everyone's focused on success. And you know what? I bet you Steve Jobs would have given all his money if he could have just lived a few more years. Think about how much more money he could make too, right? So it's so important. And this is the perfect wake-up call because most people realize it when it's too late. But you don't have to. This is perfect. People go, holy moly, my health is so important. You can have all the money in the world, but without your health, it's worthless. You can't enjoy it. You can't make more of it. It's just essential to have good health. And you can make more money if you have better health because your brain's performing better and you can live longer. So it's so essential. And this is a perfect wake-up call. And I believe on looking on the bright side, and this is definitely there's a phenomenal gain. A lot of people are going to benefit from this because they're really going to realize how important their health is. So what are some great supplements? Well, you need these key nutrients. Now, vitamin C is one you mentioned. Be careful with vitamin C supplements. A lot of them are ascorbic acid based. Ascorbic acid is synthetic vitamin C, and it's crazy. Like the factories where they make it, you need titanium piping because this stuff is so corrosive. So you want to make sure you're getting vitamin C from a natural source. Lemon water is a great way to get your vitamin C. I like it. It's like non-sweetened lemonade. You can sweeten it with a little honey if you want. Hibiscus tea is a great one. It's so delicious. It's, you can Google it. It's like this bright red tea that you can make from these dried, it's not a leaf. It's like this bulb that the flower produces. So it's really cool. And that's got loads of vitamin C. Lemons, limes, even fruits have vitamin C. There are three types of fruits. There are acidic fruits, there are semi-acidic, and there are alkaline fruits. And so, alkaline fruits are fruits that don't have any tanginess to them. Blueberries, all these berries, strawberries, raspberries, they have some sourness to them. They got vitamin C in them. So you can also get vitamin C from there, but really stick to natural sources and whole food. Oftentimes, companies will base their products and their research on the products off the fresh version. This is really evident for Moringa. I don't know if you've heard of Moringa, but it's this superfood. It's like a multivitamin from nature. It's got so many different nutrients. It's got 60 different nutrients. It's the most nutritious leaf on earth. It's got like 2 times more protein than yogurt, more calcium than milk, it's got more vitamin C than oranges, all this stuff. But that's in fresh form. So all these companies were selling you Moringa in the powdered form and telling you, look at these results. Look how good it is. But that was the fresh form. When you powder it, you expose every little particle to oxygen, and you lose so many minerals and nutrients. And it's so important to get the fresh version or look at the studies on the powdered version if you're going to buy the powdered version. So fresh is best. Stick to whole foods. That's the most important. And immune system is really a byproduct of your health. If you're a healthy person, you're going to have a strong immune system. So I want to talk right now about this ancient Chinese medicine diet. And it's called the Yin and the Yang Diet. I'm sure we've all heard the Yin and the Yang. It's a martial arts symbol, but it actually means a lot more than that. So the Yin and Yang Diet is basically you look at this balance. So what is Yin? Yin is up in the sky. Yin is cold. Yin is sugary. Yin is water. Yin is curvy. So the female body on the outside is actually very yin. The male body is more straight and less curvy, and it is more yang on the outside. Yang foods are down, so it's like earth. Yang foods are root vegetables, dry, hot. And this diet is brilliant because it takes into account your environment. Your environment is a very, very important factor in your health. Your diet must be based off of your environment. If your environment isn't a key factor, then you're following the wrong diet. So what's really important about this yin and the yang diet is it also changes for the season. So when it's really hot outside, it's okay to have very yin foods. So it's okay to have lots of fruits and sugary fruits, and you can make your own delicious ice cream that's guilt-free, and that's one of the recipes in my new book, which is going to be released soon, The Biology of Greatness. But it's really important to eat nice spicy foods, hot soups, root vegetables in the wintertime, especially if you're like me and you live in Vancouver, which is a cold and damp, very yin environment. Unless in the summer we do get some hot summers, but not as hot as other places like Hawaii, Mexico, and so it's really important to make sure you look at your diet and look at your environment. So that's the advice I'd give you. I know you want to say something, Bernardo, but I just want to finish this up.
Sure.
So for yin foods, I would make sure you consume. Here's the thing: a lot of people have what's called Yin Disease, and basically that's a very simplified way of talking about things. You don't need to learn all the science. That's what I love so much about this. If you're flying high up in the air, I'm exposed to a lot of yin. I need to eat very yang foods, grounding, putting your bare feet on the earth, getting that yang energy. And that's, a lot of people are saying, grounding is it's a conspiracy theory, but we know that the earth has a pulse that's been proven. And when you put your bare feet on the pulse, the energy has been shown to flow through it. Now, there does need to be a little bit of moisture there, ideally on wet grass. And that's something we know that swimming, it's also great. Water's got a great effect when you swim in it. And I would look at the root vegetables. Anything that grows in the ground and isn't too sweet is very yang. So incorporate those foods into your diet if you're in a very cold, damp environment. If you're in a hotter environment, enjoy fresh, delicious, juicy fruits. Okay, go ahead.
No, it's fine, Daniel. I'm just kind of like, in awe of how much knowledge you have. So listen, we've got a few minutes left. I want people to have the opportunity to find out a bit more about you and what you're working on or how to find you. But look, at the end of the day, the reason I wanted to invite Daniel along is because, he should shame and does shame a lot of us. And I think if anything, and when it comes down to personal and professional growth, it is about that, really. It is about learning, it's continuing to learn and to evolve and to explore and understand what you don't understand. And I think, a lot of the times we tend to not spend enough time on focusing on the right things. I mean, Daniel pointed it out, the fact is we spend our life exploring wealth to then spend the last part of our life trying to, use that wealth that hopefully we have got and to spend it on health. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't have either the wealth or the health. And, they might find themselves late in life trying to kind of catch up with all these things. So
yeah, actually, I think Bill Walsh, who's a speaker at your events also, he summarizes it best. He said, people won't spend a penny on health, but they'll spend, millions on a cure.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what it is. And so I invite you all to read more, to find out more. And you might not want to be talking about your gut. You might not want to know what's coming out your derriere. But at the end of the day, it's important as it is to what you put in your mouth. So, take responsibility. I'm Jason Vale. I was talking to him last week, and we were talking about the idea of the NHS, which is the National Health System in the UK. And basically, he was saying, he says, don't ask what the NHS can do for you, because, people are wanting gastric bands, or they want operations, they want to lose weight or whatever, or heart attacks or whatever is happening because of what they've inflicted in themselves. So don't ask what you can do for the NHS, but ask what you can do for the NHS, and that's kind of the idea, is you are responsible of your own health.
Yes, people rely on doctors to think of them as gods, but you got to take control of your health first, because it's your responsibility.
And unfortunately, listen, we all might succumb to different types of diseases, which, there's nothing you can do. You can still be a healthy individual, but, you will live longer.
And even if you don't live longer, as let's say somehow you don't live longer, you're still going to get more out of life, because you're going to feel more energy. You're going to have more brain power. You're going to feel even better, more alive. And that's really the power of health.
Absolutely. So, Daniel, how can people find you? What are you focusing? What are you working on right now? And how can people find you?
Well, So when is this podcast going to be released?
Very soon. And I suppose in a couple of weeks' time.
Okay. So then when that happens, my new book will be out, The Biology of Greatness. So this is what happens is, as I was studying genius over the course of 3 years, I was able to achieve all these great things. And I don't believe it's because I'm special. Obviously, the gifted test showed I wasn't born genius. But because I applied these keys, and because I was doing all these great tips and tricks, and what I really did is I did a lot of this research, but I find research can be, studies can be swayed. If you change one variable in a study, it can change the result completely. So that's why I really had to try out all these keys for myself. And as I was trying out these keys, as I was trying out these tips, like cold immersion, your gut, learning about all these tips and tricks and really, really important basis for a healthy diet, and to unleash genius and increase your IQ. We get into all that in the book. But what I did is I created this little journal of everything that worked. And that's the book. That book is kind of my journal. I rewrote it so that it wasn't like a journal, it was more like a book. But basically, I was keeping a journal over the course of 3 years of everything that I was trying out that was working, and how powerful it is. We talk about cold immersion, how to increase your IQ, the state of peak performance, which top athletes use to win, where you can literally master a skill in 1 day. They've done studies. You can master archery in 1 day. You can master skills and increase your learning in 1 day by activating this perfect state. And it's called alpha brainwaves. And we get into that in the book. We get into recipes. There's over an entire month of recipes. So all that stuff. You can go to thebiologyofgreatness.com. You can also go to my YouTube channel, Daniel Bissonnette, and then I got plenty of free content there. You can learn a lot about your gut, learn about a bunch of stuff. I do have a few videos on poop there, but and then I also have an Instagram channel you can check out. It's the Daniel Bissonnette. And then I'll also be speaking at the Best You Expo when that happens.
Well, we're very excited to have you back, Daniel. It's been great to see you, my friend, and also talk to you, obviously, and hear, the amount of vast knowledge that you have, the amount of research, the amount of books and articles that you've read, and how you are now an authority in the field. So congratulations on an amazing journey in Europe. Listen, technically, physically, you're just getting started. So well done. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening, for watching here today, inspiring people. Stay safe, and may the best be with you. Thank you so much. Take care.
For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.